You're up, Commissioner.
Okay, I'll call this meeting to order. We do have some amendments to the agenda today. One is Emma's coming in to talk about county logo and privacy policy. We're going to have a budget preparation discussion, and then adding right now, I would like to amend and have a discussion on sandbags. So I'd like a motion to set the agenda with those amendments.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we accept the agenda with all the amendments that you mentioned.
We have a motion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And our first order of business is the Board of Ambulance.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we enter into the Board of Ambulance.
Okay. And I did have a question there, and I went and talked to Christie.
Approve the motion.
Huh?
Vote on your motion.
Oh,
Sorry.
all in favor say aye.
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 I was already gone. But I did visit with Christy Clauser about the life flight, and it was a double bill.
That's what most of those refunds are, is when you have an insurance company or individual pay, and then the other party pays too, then it's a overpayment, so. But Life Flight is a new one, that we've not had that one.
That one got me. And then, as I went through the commissioner's report, the ambulance, the monthly contract is in the commissioner's report, but it needs to be as part of the ambulance so that we make that discussion or decision as a Board of Ambulance. That was the only comments or questions that I had.
Okay. Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve the ambulance payments as requested.
We have a motion. All in favor say aye.
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 And Mr. Chair, I make a motion we exit the Board of Ambulance.
We have a motion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Then we have Commissioner's report and invoices. I had some questions on this one too, but I went to talk to Christie. This Fort Hall irrigation project, it's something that comes up once a year. We must be part of the Fort Hall irrigation system somewhere that we pay a maintenance fee. It's $41, but it's something that doesn't come up very often. And then had a discussion about landfill individuals had gone to a conference, and there was $1,000 and then $600 and $500 and $300. And the reason that is split up like that, it didn't have the individual names, but it's paid out of different pockets. Some of it's out of landfill, some of it was out of
The gas system.
gas, and so that's why there were such different numbers on each one of them. But we went down and looked at those invoices and answered my questions. Anybody else have questions?
Nope.
Then the invoices. This one is for the appraisal, Park Price Building. I have a question on this one now. This come to us from Road and Bridge or landfill, and it is a contract with KZBQ to do broadcast. And so I asked,
That's the one that Emma's been working with them on, that we're doing the joint, she brought before the board, I think it was last week, where they're doing the joint.
Environmental fair.
Oh, yeah.
And part of the bill is coming from landfill, part of it's coming from Scott, and another part Wes Jones
Wes
is
is
paying.
coming for some.
And I don't know if he decided to pay it out of his grant or if he's just gonna pay it out of his budget.
okay. Well, the thing that was,
I believe that's.
that was confusing to me is it come with a request,
Let me see the invoice, I hope.
and then Well, that's the whole packet that comes. And if it's a contract, it
Yeah,
it needs to go through legal. So I just want to make sure that we get all the players on the same page.
And actually, this isn't the environmental fair.
This is what?
This is not about.
This is for
environmental
free
fair.
dump days and,
Yeah, hazardous waste days.
and,
So, yeah, I'd say hold that then.
but it is a contract, and so that's why I kind of wanted legal to.
Sorry, I thought when you were talking, that was the most common thing that we had talked about lately.
But the way, so I asked Christie, I says, Kyle, or anybody coming? Because there is an agenda request.
Or Kyle's at that.
Yeah, he's gone, and
Who's negotiating this deal? Do we know? Maybe Kyle or maybe Emma
I would
would be
assume
involved?
Emma's involved because she's been involved in all of the other.
Yeah, and the radio is where the majority of the people find out about the free dump days. And so this is something they do every year, is go on the radio and promote it.
I'd say just take it back and ask Emma if she knows anything about it. And then, if she doesn't, get her involved and then get legals involved, right?
I'm pretty sure that's what that is, because she was talking to me yesterday about going down there and recording the commercials for it. And so, pretty sure that's what that is.
well, let's just hold on to it
I
for
want
a
to
minute.
see whoever's involved with this.
We can
thing
ask
before
Emma
we-
if she has any
Yeah.
knowledge of it, but like I said, I asked Brian.
So we're just leaving this.
It hadn't come before him yet. So,
Well, I want to talk to him before we do any agreements like this.
okay. Let's hold that one out of here then. So, a motion on Commissioner's report and invoices.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve the Commissioner's report and invoices as presented.
We have a motion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Next we have salary rate approval forms. And the Fair Board submitted one for a current employee that is
Jamie,
a part.
She's
She-
temporary.
Yeah, she works 5 months on and then takes a break and then for what, 1 month? And then
Yep, has
comes
to be
back
30
on.
days.
And spend, that's all that is. So it's not changing pay or.
Yeah, it's not, it didn't change anything.
No.
It's on the wrong forms. We gotta get them updated. Doesn't have John's name on any of these. And most of them are 2 pages taped together, a front and a back. I'd like us to look at them ahead of time and get the right form and the right names,
You and me both.
so.
And I know the fair, other than the one I gave you this morning, I signed those other 2 yesterday morning when I was in here for about 10 minutes, so I didn't look at the name. I did see the taped part, but by the time everybody has signed it,
Well,
it's not
A lot of these are
identical.
coming through your office first, or Josh is one signing them.
Yeah,
Send them back, tell them to put them on the right form, and,
not take pages
One.
together.
yeah,
Yeah.
And our office has a duplex printer, if they need us to print it out for them.
Okay.
I'm sure most offices do, but
So motion on the salary rate approval forms.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve the salary rate approval forms as presented.
We have a motion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. You the mouthpiece? Who's the mouthpiece today?
I think we're gonna tag team it.
Come on up.
You want our gal to get here first? She's supposed to be here at 9:15.
Okay. Emma, come on up.
I will start. First, Emma Iannacone, Public Information Officer. I have a couple of items before the board today. First, I'm going to start with the logo design. Last week, we were contacted by City of Pocatello because our seal that they are going to use on the t-shirts for the environmental fair was not showing up super great on the printed versions, or at least they were concerned that it wasn't going to show up very nicely. And it's something that I've been wanting to do anyways, is create an additional logo that we can use in place of the seal for less official items. So I used that as an opportunity to kickstart this project, and I reached out to Stewart's Media and asked if they could design a logo that was based on our seal and had that same look and feel. We sent them a few different options, and this is what they sent back, and I was really pleased with it. We've gotten a lot of good feedback from the few people that we've shown it to. So I'm bringing it before the board to see if you are in agreement that we should adopt this and use it for less official things. I imagine using this for event sponsorships, for posters, and I can think of several other things when I'm down in my office, but of course when I'm up here I can't think of them. But I think it's beneficial because it shows Bannock County much larger text than in the seal, and which will be more recognizable for the community in smaller things, so that they don't have to squint to read, oh, that's Bannock County.
And then your comment that we could take Idaho out. Go ahead.
Yes, so I like the idea of being able to switch out the Idaho on the bottom to use it for departments. So I brought an example, and you can pass it around. Because our Veteran Services Office has designed a logo for themselves, and several other departments have, needed something like this so that they can brand themselves as they're doing public outreach. And so this would keep it consistent, and I've received the Illustrator file from Stewart's Media so that I can go in and make those as needed. We don't have to contract with them every time we need a new department logo.
Comments?
I like it. I love it.
Yeah, to put out there on all these publishings that we do and stuff. And I like the flow of it, honestly.
Yeah, that little swoosh is very popular right now amongst government entities. So, keeping with the times.
I'd ask for a motion.
Any other discussion? Mr. Chair, then I would make a motion that we approve the logo as presented.
Have a motion, all in favor say aye.
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 All right, the second item I'm bringing before the board is to adopt a privacy policy in terms and conditions for the Bannock County Event Center website. As we have been updating the Event Center's website for our 2023 concert season, our marketing contractor asked that we have a privacy policy in terms and conditions. Legally, I believe we need to have one. So I'll let you confirm that. But I worked with Alan Bamey, thank you, Alan Bamey on this, and we adapted it based off of Red Rocks Amphitheater's privacy policy and terms and conditions. So, and we also worked with Adam from IT to confirm that the information that we collect when people visit our sites is correct. We only collect their IP address, what type of browser they're using, if they were using their phone or a desktop, and all of that's just analytics. It helps us figure out where people are finding the page and if they're bouncing as soon as they get there. It also will tell us how long the page loads, I believe. So it's just analytics information. It's never their name. And I don't believe it has their location either. But I think actually the location would make sense that it's on there so that we can see if people are in Idaho or if they're across the country looking at our site. So the privacy policy is pretty straightforward, and same with the terms and conditions. That's just saying that all of the stuff on our website is ours, or if it's not ours, it's been used in a correct manner. And then we also have the violation of terms in case we do have copyrighted material on there that we haven't been approved to use. People have a way of contacting us to make sure that that's taken down.
Have anything else to add, Adam?
No, this is pretty boilerplate, and we don't collect anything personally identifiable. Like she said, just analytics. How long they stay on the site, where they go afterwards, just allows us to gauge how much traffic we're using.
Do we have to have a...
So Adam, what they're saying in this agreement is true as far as our system goes. We're not over collecting beyond what she's listed in here?
No, absolutely not. We never have been. first off, with the amount of traffic that some of our sites get, it would be a massive administrative nightmare to try and collect that identifiable data.
I just want to make sure we're not accidentally collecting it.
No, absolutely not. Whenever a browser makes a request for a site, the things that are listed in this terms and conditions, they are collected automatically.
Okay.
Those are primarily, like she mentioned, analytics. It tells us if they were on a phone or if they were on a desktop. Yes, you can garner the general location from an IP address, but we don't log that other than to say, you know, you had X number of visits from the US, X number of visits from Canada, that stuff goes into our Google Analytics, and they can just use that for, if we can determine if there's issues accessing our site from certain locations, but we don't save any of this stuff other than it goes into the analytics. There's no names, no, you know, nothing like that that's contacted or kept or anything like that. And this is, we looked at this privacy policy, this is pretty straight. It's pretty much the same one that almost every website like this uses. It's pretty common. So.
And Emma, did you say you need to add in location to this? Is that
No,
what you
I
said?
believe location's already listed.
So you think we're sufficient as far as location goes, and it states that whatever language we need is already in there, we don't have to modify that?
Yeah, it states that with this Internet Protocol IP address. The IP address, we use it for a couple things. Not only do we collect it for analytics, meaning that we can have a list of how much people access the site, but we also use it to block sites or connections that would do things malicious. The website has a firewall in front of it that watches this traffic, and if we see things like they're trying to access restricted folders, it will block that IP address. It doesn't collect any. We don't, you know, it's not like a enforceable thing. We just simply time that IP address out for a certain amount of time and say, hey, you tried 10 passwords incorrectly, you can't access the site for an hour or two. And then it will, you know, we do get a log of that stuff, but again, it doesn't say who's doing it. It's just someone at this IP address. The way the internet is now, a lot of businesses use natting, which is basically a way for one specific IP address to serve an entire network of computers. And so what you can get is one computer on a network of a couple hundred that's a bad actor and might hit that site a few times, and it'll time that out, and we'll be able to say, we blocked this site for, you know, 30 minutes or 1 day based on these requests. But we don't collect anything that would be, we don't say, oh, it was this company or this individual that did it. It's simply somebody at that address was trying to access something we didn't want them to, and we'll just bounce that traffic off for a bit.
So Emma, in your mind, this is ready to go. We don't have to add anything further.
No, I feel that it's prepared. I was gonna add a few commas, and that was it.
Okay, and your department has looked at this and is okay?
Yeah, Alan was working. Yeah, Alan did.
Okay,
Yep.
great.
I'd also like to have this under the main Bannock County page as well. That's something that I'd like to have consistent across all of our sites, so.
And the two sites work the same way as far as collection. So this applies directly to the, you know, both sites.
Do you have a question?
No.
A motion?
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve the privacy policy for the website as presented.
This doesn't have a signature line, but I want to sign it. We have a motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. If you want to talk to her about it. No.
Yeah, and then I'd like Jason to sign that one also, just, so, it's a policy now. I had one other question. There was a bill for the landfill and stuff that Kyle submitted.
For the radio ads, correct?
Uh-huh. What do you know about that?
So I've been working with Kyle and with East Idaho Radio, which is the company that we have contracted, well, that I have presented to contract to, for our household hazardous waste ads. So that was something that previously we had, as I mentioned a few weeks ago when I was here before the board, we had contracted out with another company to do $12,000 worth of advertising. And as the landfill employees have asked people as they come in to deposit their hazardous waste, they ask, where did you hear about us? And overwhelmingly, they hear about us from radio. So that was why I decided to continue using them as with our same service. I've updated our radio ad because it needed to be updated. It hadn't been updated in like 20 years or something. And those ads will just run that week before the day, for the few days leading up to the actual hazardous waste day, which is 7 days throughout the year, first Saturday of the month between April and October.
So in association with this is both a contract and a bill. Is that correct then?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Has it gone through legal as a contract?
No, I don't believe so. Thank
Okay.
you. I forgot to do that.
So we'll go ahead and push it off. When does these take effect?
Well, luckily our first day isn't until April 1st, so it's
Okay.
not urgent.
I'd like legal to look at it as a contract and then come back before us. And it could come back as soon as Tuesday, but if you'd get that back on the agenda then.
And Emma, I want to meet with you on this type of program.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Adam.
You're welcome.
All right. Christy Davenport.
Oh, their lady is here now.
Oh, your lady's here? Yes. Sit down for a minute. Sit down for a minute. We'll go ahead.
Pretty pleased with sugar on top.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Annie Hughes, Event Coordinator at the Event Center.
Operations Manager.
Lynette Smith. I'm with a few different organizations.
So I was wondering if you guys would mind if we started with the Mike Johnson Vegas Toughest Qualifier event first? Is that when they are paying full fee?
And what is it?
So it's a youth event for youth that are 19 and under, can qualify to go rope or barrel race or goat tie down in Las Vegas with Mike and Sherry Lynn Johnson. Mike has been to the NFR 23 different times, and so it's a youth event that kids can go and compete for a lot of money.
Okay. So I didn't get that explanation in here. And one, I was wondering about horse stalls, because when I read that it's the toughest qualifier event, and last year we had the people come up that wanted to do MMA fighting and stuff. I'm saying, I want more details if that's the direction we're going. 'Cause
Say, I have held this event. This will be my 4th time doing it up here at Bannock County.
you said roping, and that solved a lot of my questions.
Good.
Any
Okay.
questions about that one? So we will receive 100% of concessions, all of the RV site and horse stalls, and they are paying full fee for that contract.
Mr. Chair, I have one question, if that's okay. Regarding sponsorships, I know the contract says that they're open to bring their own sponsors in. Do they give you a list of who their sponsors are going to be ahead of time? The only reason I ask is because up at the event center, we are deed restricted at least to one certain type of sponsorship, and that's something that would need to be reviewed.
Do you guys even use?
So I just have one.
At the event center, we're not. It's a wellness
Or
conference.
sorry, the wellness, not the event, okay. sorry,
Okay, we're in the
talking about
event
the
center.
wellness conference.
Yeah.
Okay,
We're
never
in the-
mind then. I
Yeah,
thought
this
we
is
were up
Rodeo
to-
Arena.
Yeah. Never mind.
Okay.
I haven't finished my breakfast yet.
Okay, so then the next contract.
Okay, let's go ahead and do a motion on this one.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve the contract with the Tough Riders event? There we go. The Mike Johnson Vegas Toughest Qualifier event.
Thank you.
Yeah, I had a lot of questions when I first started reading through there.
No MMA fighting.
Okay. We have a motion, all in favor, say aye.
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 Do you need some of Brian's breakfast?
I might.
That's twice.
Yeah, for some reason I was thinking this was, no.
My mind's
Okay, the
working
event center,
overtime.
we're good.
So then the second contract is District 8 High School and Junior High Rodeo. So this one is a fee reduction, and they just need to use it in April and May, the indoor arena. Again, we will get full fees for RV site, horse stalls, 100% concessions, and I'll let you, talk to you guys more about it?
Not much
How
to
many years
say,
have you been doing
but,
it up there?
oh, geez. I've been the district secretary for going on 11, maybe 12 years now. And we've came up to the indoor arena at least once in the spring, once or twice in the spring a year. Just because we did split districts, and now the other district is just Malad and Pocatello, but down in southeast Idaho, we're still swamped in snow. It's nice coming up here, and there's not nearly the amount of snow. So it's hard for us to get into our local arenas down there, but Bannock County is still in our district, and so we enjoy being able to come up and get out of the weather into the indoor arena.
So what
to
schools
compete.
are involved with this?
There's Marsh Valley and Bear Lake and Caribou. So it's those counties.
Are you needing to have more days this year because of the snow?
Possibly, and so that's why we have added in there, our first rodeo weekend will be April 21st and 22nd. That will be up there, and then our district finals, the 18th through the 20th. We're planning on that's an extra weekend for us, and then we also do have 2 Fridays there as well, because, yeah, Bear Lake still has, 3 feet of snow, so. Luckily, it's been going fast this week, but worried it's going too fast, too.
Kind of flood.
Yeah,
So we just, what was it, the 6th district we just did?
or 4th.
4th district?
Probably
I don't
4th
know.
district.
And is this the same price?
I thought Scott had said he matched.
They're probably the same price per day for each rental,
Okay.
but they aren't using it maybe as much.
Yeah, 4th isn't using it as much. They'll go to Blackfoot and American Falls as well.
I guess that's,
Yes, but it's.
just so we're equal across the
Yes.
different districts.
Yes.
Okay? Comments on this one?
No, this is pretty good. No cause, no heartburn.
No.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve the District 8 High School and Junior High Rodeo as presented.
Have a motion, all in favor say aye.
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 Okay, and then the last one is the Idaho Junior Rodeo Association. And this one is a 3-year term with an increase of 3% each year. And same thing, we get 100% for stalls. The only thing this one is different is dry camping is included in this fee is there for
Most-
all of the,
Yeah, for
If you
each
wanna
of the
explain.
weekends. That was just so that we weren't having to go door to door, and they weren't having to go door to door to collect fees for RV campers. So this just is including all the RV spaces.
So this is the same one that was kind of camping everywhere and anywhere?
I think last year, or the year before, yeah.
The year before?
The year before.
Had a conversation with one of the individuals that-
Yep,
and then they was keeping their equipment on our
and that's been
grounds
taken care of
also.
too.
Okay.
Yep. And so last year, yep,
see
we
those.
just camped just up at the upper infield, yep, and took care, we brought our trailer back and forth and didn't store it here or up there at the fairgrounds anymore.
Okay. Okay, yeah, them were discussions that we'd had. If we're gonna do a 3-year deal, I wanna
Yep,
make sure that we're where we need to be.
I have a question on this. On the front page, we're under Terms of Agreement Clause 2, and it has the different dates, and it says 2023 will commence on certain dates, 24, 25. Are these the actual dates that you're gonna have these guys up there?
they're the dates they provided us to do those.
Sorry?
those are the dates that we're planning towards.
Okay, but are these firm dates, or is there a possibility these could change?
We're hoping that they are firm dates, but we are open to change if we need to.
If it has to change, who, is that because the county wants to change the dates for some reason, or why would it change?
That would only be, yeah, just negotiations between us
So
if
we
they have other
wouldn't need
events.
to change the dates because we would already have them reserved for them. I have them locked down for 3 years, so I know not to put anything else over them. The only way they would change is if for some reason they just didn't want to hold their event, then they could contact us and pull those dates or see if we needed to change them. And we could move them if the facility is available.
Okay, so I'm just make sure I'm understanding this thing. As far as we know, these are the dates both sides want, and these are firm dates that you're gonna hold these
Correct.
events. Is that right?
Yes.
Ideally.
Okay,
Yes.
because that's not clear in
Yeah.
the contract.
What was that?
That's not clear in this agreement. It says this will commence on, and then it lists a bunch of dates. So that's not worded in a way that I think makes sense.
We do hold 8 separate rodeos up there, and so that's why there's that many dates listed.
The word commence is a problem,
Oh,
you know.
Well, it's just been in the contract for years, so we just use the same language. We can change that if you need us to. I don't know if it's been brought up before.
I think we need to clarify, we need to change the wording there. Okay, so that's what I would recommend is we change that so it's clear that they'll take place on, or are scheduled to take place on the following dates. Something like that.
Okay.
And then it's more, then I wouldn't have to ask these questions. I would understand what you're doing, okay?
Okay.
But are you willing to okay the contract with?
I'm willing to
verbiage
okay the
change?
contract, but I'm going to ask that you make a change to clarify that these are the dates that you have all agreed to. And if, by the way, if there is a possibility of changing the dates, you probably ought to have a statement in there to the effect that if mutually agreed, both parties can modify these dates. I would put something like that in.
okay.
You want to make that motion then?
Sure. So, Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve this agreement with the changes that I just stated that you guys will take care of.
We have a motion. All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Now, Christie Davenport.
Tell her just kidding again.
Oh, just kidding.
Christy Davenport, Management Assistant.
Yeah, you did.
I have asked Jennifer Clark, Treasurer, and Misty Katsamidas, Chief Deputy Treasurer, to come and fill you in or give a recommendation for Dina Marie Dye. A couple weeks ago, she came in and you asked that she fill out a property tax reduction application before you would move forward with her request for hardship. And she has done that, so.
Do you want our office's recommendation now at this point?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so we would recommend then, kind of going off of what you had said at the original meeting, to cancel the 2019 and 2020 taxes, late fee, interest, and cost. And we would also recommend that there would be a $75 a month payment to our office due at the first of the month, each month, and that would start April 1st. That would take her about 18 and a half months to catch everything up. This would also be contingent that if she missed 2 payments in a row, that we would not move forward with any more agreements ever again. And that she also must apply for the PTR by April 15th of every year in order to keep her taxes at a minimum that we feel she will get that, so, if she applies. So
Okay.
that would be our recommendation if she followed through with all of those, then, from what you said at the original meeting, to go ahead and cancel those taxes.
And everybody remembers where we was at when we talked. Any further comments, questions, desires?
At this point in time, she appears to have held up her end of the deal, so I'm willing to move forward.
John?
I have no comments.
Okay. Would you write that up
I will.
so that, and then like bring it to us Tuesday that we can actually sign on it? We'll go ahead and make the motion but I'd like a paper that we sign
Of course.
saying what our agreements are and stuff, so.
Okay. Do you want to,
Well, we can make the motion on Tuesday and sign it there. Okay,
Okay.
thank you. Hopefully we don't come back with her name in front of us.
That would be our hope.
Shanda.
Good morning, Commissioners. Shanda Christel, Chief Procurement Officer. I have a procurement update for you this morning. Starting at the top of the dashboard, we have added a new, well, not new, we've been talking about the concealed weapons detection upgrade here at the courthouse for a while now. In discussions with the department head and facilities, we have discussed and weighed the different options between piggybacking off of various contracts that were available and bidding out the project. As we've weighed those different options, the group does feel that it would be best at this time to bid out the project and have it open and available to all contractors that are interested in doing business with us. So if there's any questions or concerns, or we'll move forward in that fashion and we'll start creating a draft for we'll pattern it after a lot of the information requests that we had. We'll use that as kind of the bones to get going, but we'll make an RFP off of that. Okay. The next is the drug testing services that we've talked about before with the adjusting in the price. Again, right, going out to bid and seeing if there's not a contractor out there that can do it for a more reasonable cost for us. That draft has gone back and forth between their group and procurement for the last little bit, and we are now finalizing the weights on the criteria, how we're going to evaluate those proposals as they come back in. And once that group approves the weights on the criteria for evaluation, we'll go ahead and post that most likely next week. The next one, the sanitizing, there we go, chemicals out of the gel for both their dishwashing and their laundry are the two that we're focusing on for this particular procurement. Captain Thurgood has the finalized draft in front of him, and as soon as they again agree to both the weights on how it's evaluated and the language that's in the RFP, we'll go ahead and post that, and that one will probably get posted on Monday. That is an informal one. We anticipate the cost of those services somewhere $60,000, somewhere in there for the year. So it's just over that $50,000 mark. So it's an informal bid process. The next one is the Forensic Pathology Center remodel. We went out for requests for qualifications for architectural services to design that remodel. That one has gone back and forth to the group that we've created as well. It's been finalized, posted on Bonfire. It got posted in the Idaho State Journal yesterday, and then next Wednesday will be the second date that it'll be posted. It's also been emailed out to all local architectural firms that we have addresses for. We have received 2 requests back in for full proposal information, so we're engaging some architectural firms, so that is good to hear, and we're looking forward to the pre-bid in a couple weeks. The next is the Fairgrounds sheep barn that we're moving forward on. That one has been posted. We're waiting for questions, hearing back questions due from contractors. We have 2 different contractors that have engaged with questions, so that is nice to hear that we've got some traction on that project. And they are due at the end of the month, and then we'll respond to those questions at that time. The detention center roof has moved forward. I had been working with Commissioner Crowder on the contract, and that has been submitted to Contract West Roofing for their review and signature before it comes before the board for final review. And the final one I have is the Event Center, Wellness Center, Gravity-Fed Sewer System. That project, you might remember, we were able to complete just over half of that project before the winter hit and the ground was frozen. They are looking at hopefully beginning that project back up here in the next couple of weeks. They're holding the end of March, early April, that the ground will be able to be thawed and they'll be able to pick up that project. They have every anticipation of meeting their deadline with Mr. Crowder that they had completed that project by the end of May. But if they run into something weird, strange, interesting, we'll report that back to the board. But for now, they have every anticipation of meeting that deadline. And that is all I have for the board at this time.
Questions?
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks so much.
Braden?
I am bringing mine to you Tuesday. The USFS is getting back to me some information, so we're going to move mine to Tuesday.
Okay, just a little question on that.
Yeah.
We got the notice again of the pallets up there being burned. But that's in Caribou County, correct? That parking lot?
They said there have been several parking lot fires throughout areas that they've been plowing, so they wanted to spread the message throughout Bannock County as well as Caribou, but that's obviously Caribou's issue.
Or power.
Or power, yeah.
That was up there. I just, jurisdiction
Mhm.
for an officer, that's, we've had this problem before, and I just,
Yeah, I think when I
Answer.
talked to Sheila on the phone, she said that just getting a general message out, just to try to, I guess, prevent people from doing that in any of our parking lots as well. They've had issues with flats and plowing in general, so they're like, how are we supposed to keep the machines on the road to recreate safely if we can't get them up because there's flats and whatever issues come from that, so.
but I guess this would be I'd like to talk to the Forest Service too about the parking lot up in Inman that was brought up at the income meeting about needing to enlarge that. So
Okay.
why don't we
I can invite them on Tuesday, see if they can be here.
have something there and we can have that conversation. And then the other part that bothers me or confuses me, this is their ground, and we're paying them to plow their ground.
I'm waiting for information, so I can't really, I looked at our old contract yesterday to compare them again, and I asked for a breakdown of this year's. I know that when we signed the one in December of '21, it was only good for that next year. We knew we were gonna have to redo it. And they had said they anticipated fees would increase. So I'm wondering how much of that was just fee increase versus, because that was a 20-something year agreement, essentially, just kept getting rolled over.
Yeah.
And from their main office, I think Salt Lake, or wherever this region is reporting to, they said there would be an increase. I wasn't sure how much it was gonna be, but it went from about 6,200 to that 15, so they're giving clarification on that.
Okay. Yeah, there was a few questions. I mean,
I can check about the
paying
land
to
issue.
train their people to do the job and different stuff. There's a few things on that contract that just,
Okay,
so it'd be good to have them here answer some questions.
you got it.
All right. Ryan?
Okay. So I have on the agenda to talk about the compensation report that I provided. And I know it's a bit thick. I tried to make it a little smaller than last year's. I guess starting off, I could go through the whole thing, or would you prefer that, since you've had a chance to read over it, if you had specific questions?
Well, what changes did you make from the last time we went over it? I didn't see anything highlighted, and I was reading through it. Maybe it's been a while since I went to the last one but it reminded me a lot of the last one that we went over.
Yeah, and I have had some discussions with some of you individually and Jason individually over this. There hasn't been a whole lot of changes since I've talked to you about it. What I have been doing though, and maybe just in general, is, as you see, the document is divided into 6 parts, right? And the first part addresses a number of positions where I asked departments to send me updates that they may have to position descriptions that they think were out of date or maybe in the wrong classification, to have me review them. And so I expect since last time we've talked, there's been some added
Okay.
to the list.
And I guess that's, as I started through it, I mean, it all seemed like the same, and so if there was changes, I was expecting,
Okay.
like a highlight or something, but this is
Yeah.
the difference.
Yeah, and you'll have to forgive me, I don't remember exactly what I had gone over with you, where I was at, but I did remember there was a few things that, I think there were many that were straightforward. There were some though that, especially with like both the prosecutors and the public defense, how they wanted to make a bunch of changes to legal assistance. I don't know if you wanted to talk about that further, because that was a more significant change.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something you want to talk about more, or?
So you're recommending a bunch of changes for a lot of positions here, that they change the grade.
Yeah, so.
And what are the implications for making those changes financially?
Yep. So on that, I try to, in my role, with classification of positions, just focus in on, you submitted a position description, I'm trying to put it in the right classification. As far as budget implications and projecting, I defer that to, I defer that to auditing, unless you really want me to crunch the numbers for all that. Because I was just, in this particular report, or maybe I could help, maybe in a phase 2 or something, help work on that.
So
But for
really,
now,
you're
this
just
is-
asking you think it's not graded, these positions aren't graded properly, so there's really no budget discussion regarding this at all?
Correct, at this
the time
point,
being.
yes. For this section at this point, yes.
These would
Gotcha.
probably be just recommendations that the departments could then take back and put within their budget.
Correct.
I'm sorry?
The departments could take these recommendations and put back within their budget requests when we start on the FY24 process.
Okay,
Yes, you can anticipate that, exactly.
okay.
And so part of why I put this in here is, A, for anticipating the budget, this to be in the department budget request, and B, just so it helped get the conversation going. And so these were based on, maybe to give you a little more confidence that this was based on an actual analysis of the position and not just something coming out of thin air, right? So that's what that first section's all about.
Uh-huh.
And then the other part is, I see, we're still comparing us to Bonneville, Kootenai, and Twin Falls. And I'd ask you to get Madison and Bingham.
Yep.
I think that these 3 counties are in a different ballgame than we are right now, in my opinion.
Okay.
That's all.
So, yeah, and I think that was a couple weeks ago. I had requested salary tables from Bingham and got them, but incorporating it into the analysis will take me a little more time.
Okay.
But I have done so in some areas. So if you're looking at the second section, and I kind of wanted to bring up this. So the first section was the position description reviews, right? The second section was talking about compression and how the county needs to fight compression on two levels. A, with the salary table itself, right? It is common, it's customary, other counties are doing it, as well as private sector, public sector. Usually the salary ranges from the minimum to the maximums around 30% plus, right? And our salary table is an outlier. It's 15, the highest you can go is 15%. And so that compresses us compared to, what you'd see in the world around us as far as salary tables go. And so my recommendation is this, one of the simplest ways we could address that is, rather than just go to step 10, add some more steps on the backside. So we could go, and I put an image of what that kind of table would look like. And it's just a minor tweak to our current table. Other options that we could do is, rather than having 1.4% between each step like we currently do, we could expand that. The reason I didn't make that my primary recommendation is because I really believe that funding step increases each year helps fight compression on another level. And keeping the 1.4% should make that easier to budget each year, rather than some higher percentage between steps. So And because that kind of is the second level of compression we face is if we don't consistently fund steps, then people who have been here for 5 years versus people just starting are making about the same rate of pay. And so you'll see throughout this report, that is a recommendation I feel really passionately about is funding steps to fight compression. And so that's my.
These
my
other
piece.
counties that you're comparing us with, they also have salary tables? Do they have something like this? Like we have this?
All of them do except for Canyon. Canyon does not. And then Bingham County has a salary table for their non-exempt employees, but not for their exempt employees.
Do we have copies of their salary tables?
I do.
I'd like to see those and compare in comparison with ours.
Sure. Okay, let me make a note of that.
One of the problems that I was thinking about after Ryan and I talked about the other day is, and you can see it pretty plainly here on this, is, okay, so let's say you're a grade 6 and you go all the way out to step 15, you go up to a grade 7 step minimum, and you're several dollars less per hour. So that is an issue that would have to figure out also. And going out to step 15 seems like a simple solution when I was thinking about it the other day, but I didn't factor that in,
Yeah.
that we would have to figure something out there also.
And that's common.
Is it?
If you look at the other salary tables, you'll see that.
Well, that's really why I want to see the other salary tables and see how is this being addressed typically in these different counties.
Yeah, and so when I've looked at the other tables, and I wrote it on here, and I had more detail in last year's, is our steps go at 1.4% are a bit smaller than other counties. And historically, many years ago, it was 3% between steps. And then we shaved that down to 1.4 with the idea that it'd be easier to fund. So the 1.4% between steps is kind of small, but and you'll see that in comparing us with other counties. And then, of course, the going from minimum to maximum at only 15%. We're an outlier doing that. And so they have more steps, or else they have a greater stretch between each step. Is how they do it.
Well, there's two different factors here too. There's steps and there's COLA.
Right.
And so,
Right.
For the county, it's very, very tough to give 3% in steps and 3% in COLA.
Right.
I mean,
You're right. You're right. And I acknowledge that. And what I would say is so COLA addresses the inflation, right? But steps do in a way too. I would, to fight compression, prioritize steps first, and then if we have budget left over, put that into a COLA. So, for example, if we did a step increase, if we had a goal, and what I kind of put in here is, according to SHRM, they anticipate nationally organizations are going to pay about 4.6% increases for salaries across the nation. So if we wanted to mirror that 4.6%, what my recommendation would do a step, which gets us the 1.4, and then the remainder would be a COLA, right? But prioritize that step first, and then reach the rest with the COLA.
well, it sounds to me like we need to go into the next part of our discussion on the agenda and talk about the directions and goals and what our ideas about budget. And I appreciate the longevity and all that stuff, but you go out here to Simplots and they get paid the same wage. Doesn't matter how many years you've been there. So, when you're saying nationally, you're talking about specific jobs. Anything that is like Simplots or Ash Grove or them individuals, they get paid the same wage. They have a union contract. And so, there's different ideas and thoughts out there too.
There are, And I would be interested in talking to them about their thoughts on compression and, because that's just.
There
that's
isn't
the
compression,
standard.
everybody's the same.
Well.
It's just, it's a contract that is negotiated.
Yeah. So anyway, it's just, as an HR professional, that's just one of the things that I look at. And, you know, when it comes to motivation, when it comes to, you know, the theories behind, you know, compensation, that's just one of the factors that the industry looks at. So, and I can't speak for the others, you know, and why they do it the way they do. So, so anyway, that's kind of the first three sections, right? Is the positions, the fighting the compression, and then we have a fight against inflation, right? Our dollar doesn't go as far as it did a year ago. And then the next section was talking about, okay, just comparing us again with the labor market in that goal 4, you know. And when I did my analysis initially, it was those 4 counties, right? And I used our job families, put them in families, compared benchmark positions. And after talking to you, I did go back through and see if I struck out Canyon on some of these benchmark positions that I have highlighted in the report, what kind of change that would make. And for planning and development director, it wasn't much of a change. He's still close to that 79%. And then I went back through, and you can see I highlighted a few of these. These are ones that included Bingham's. So I did include the Bingham ones. But when you take out Canyon County, it did change a lot of these other ones by less than 5%. Okay. So we look better, but it's still, in these positions, we're a bit behind. And the trend that, you know, I identified as I was going through them is if you look at a lot of these positions, they're directors, managers, officials. So we're doing pretty good when it comes to frontline employees, which surprised me. I did not expect this trend. But in a lot of our management positions, we are behind the average based on what I was looking at. Okay. And then when I did look at the law enforcement positions, if you take Canyon out, that does change it more significantly.
In which way?
We're more competitive.
And
Canyon pays quite a bit in their law enforcement. But we're still...
But you don't include that in this?
No, because I just did it. I mean, I was just looking at it. I submitted this, Friday? And between Friday and today, I was looking at those numbers.
Well, it'd probably be good to get another report with that additional information.
Okay.
And if I understand your report here correctly, 100% means we're right at the average?
Yes.
Okay, so if we're at 84%, that means that that person is getting 84% of the typical salary of whatever group you're comparing?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So.
Then you're just looking at job titles, though. You're not looking at job descriptions. So there could be some
Correct.
differences.
Correct.
So like a lot of road and bridge supervisors or public works directors are engineers and ours isn't. So in some of these situations, you might need to do a deeper dive into the job descriptions.
You're right. You're right. And what I was kind of looking for more was these trends. But you're right.
And that's where I go back to, we need to compare ourselves with Madison and Bingham County more. We don't have the tax base that Twin Falls has, and we don't have the tax base that Bonneville County has.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you took Canyon out, but that was the biggest outlier. Kootenai is a big outlier. The money that they pay, they're in a recreational area too. I mean, so we're not to me, we're not comparing apples to apples. I mean,
Okay.
so whatever outliers we want to put in or take out tells the story, whatever story we want to tell, to me.
Okay. And I can do that, and revise this section, right? So this is just one of a number of ways to look at it.
Yeah.
Right? So, and just kind of looking at the trends that way. So I can definitely do that. It takes some time to do an analysis like this.
Yeah.
You know, we're talking about, we have 400 positions. And some of the challenge too with Bingham and Madison is we have 400 plus positions and they're closer to 300, right? And so there's quite a few positions that we don't even have.
So what does Bonneville have
They
and
don't-
what does
Yeah,
you
so,
know,
and I have that
Kootenai County have?
in the report. So, and I should have put page numbers on and I got to.
And population?
Yeah, I've got the
Bannock.
population in there.
Yeah, Canyon has 875, Kootenai has 760,
Yeah,
Bonneville has 570. So, I mean,
yeah. So,
we're looking at the counties that are twice as big as us or 100 plus and not wanting to look at the ones that are 100 below us.
yep. So, yep, I can put that. It was, this was the data that was, we're learning, right? And we're refining this every year. And Twin Falls is actually a very good comparison. They're probably the closest to us.
Overall, they are.
Overall. Mhm.
Tax base, they're not.
Yeah, in Ryan's defense, he doesn't know tax base.
But like I say,
Yeah.
He just sees people.
Yep.
as we're talking about this,
Sure.
that's why I'm bringing them up.
Yeah.
And as I said before, this is just one piece of it, right? Among many. So, and part of the reason why I like to do this analysis too was some of the story that it does tell. Because, you know what, I think if I do that analysis, what I anticipate is it might change the numbers by 5%, you know, maybe a little more. But it still kind of will show that some of these positions are, especially like these director level positions and these positions in law enforcement are going to be, maybe they're not going to be quite as bad, but there is a trend that these ones are a little off, right? So anyway, that's that piece. Okay. The next piece of this particular report is talking about benefits. Okay. And there's a few things that I wanted to bring up, especially under this goal 5 is, okay, paid holidays, we're pretty much in line with what other people do. When it comes to vacation leave, I also believe that was easy to compare, and we're looking pretty much in line with these other counties, okay, that I compared us to. When it comes to sick leave, there's a lot more variance between counties on how they do it, right? And it looks like we're all accruing at a pretty similar rate, especially for new employees. But the max 6 days is where it's different, you know? And we've had other conversations about policy changes potentially with max sick days and sick payouts. But in the chart, you can kind of see where we're at. We're kind of in the middle with where we're at. And there may be some options, and we could talk about this in another meeting, like what Twin Falls does with paying out a percentage of it into an HRA. But anyway, I wanted to just kind of call some attention to that. There's other counties are doing payouts, but they all do it differently, right? And so there's some policy decisions I'd like to discuss with you maybe in another meeting about sick leave. And we had talked before about, and I put an idea about policy in the report that we had talked about before. The other thing I did put in here that's new is this chart where it shows our COBRA rates. And it kind of just is a picture that shows basically, it's the closest thing we have to show approximately what we pay as a county and what the employees pay for the health insurance per person. It's not a perfect indicator, but it's the closest thing we've got.
The rates haven't been changed since '08,
Yeah,
so.
yeah. And that could be an area where we have, per law, the ability to increase that. It could be an area to look at, but if our COBRA rates are too generous. So that is something to think about. And then there's other options potentially available. Hang on, before I go there, I did put some numbers about health insurance, dental insurance, pharmacy, and part of the picture I see when I put that in there is it's really hard to compare health plans apples and apples because there's such variety, and different counties do it in a lot of different ways, and it gets pretty complicated. There's also a piece in the report that talks about how the legal landscape has changed from, when Obama was in and they did the ACA, and then when Trump was in and he repealed pieces of it. And now, a lot of our plan hasn't changed for, since before 2010.
Oh, before that.
Well before that, but the legal landscape has changed, and there are options for things like HRAs, HSAs that weren't available back then. And so or at least they want. So what I'm overall in my recommendation here is that potentially we get a task force together where it includes like Tim from Gym Plan, me, maybe Christy, probably someone from legal involved to take a deeper dive, because an overhaul of the benefits and health plan requires expertise and legal knowledge. It's more than I can do myself. And so we may need to get a group together to take a look at that. And maybe in the end we decide no changes are necessary, but I would imagine there's some things that we could do to either save the county money, provide value to the employees, some kind of mix, that just because we haven't made a change in over 20 years, or about 20 years. So anyway, I don't have the silver bullet or answer on this, but I did want to bring to your attention the complexity of this, and that it's going to take work if we're going to touch this thing. So any questions or thoughts on that?
Yep, lots of them.
I think with the benefits, the thing to look at first and foremost is like with our task and HSAs and HRAs, to see what we can provide that wouldn't be a cost, that would also then first, if we have a program where we can where there's more allowed carryover, then we could mess with possible max out of pockets and things like that, so that we're not hurting the employees, because that's one thing that we can brag about more than any other county that I know of, is our benefits are better, always. And so we don't want to hurt them, but if over years they could basically save more, that wouldn't hurt them then if we changed the max out of pocket.
I agree. I think there's tools at our disposal, but it's going to take some energy and resources to really get to the bottom of that. So
that's a big pill.
It is a big project. So there's that, and then the final piece to this report too is the piece with law enforcement, right? So I just have a good meeting with Tony yesterday, and we've been going back and forth. And as you're aware, last year, they moved off of our salary table to their own, and they, which is basically last year, the previous fiscal year salary table, but they've separated themselves onto their own salary table, and they did a bunch of reclassifications. He is interested in making further tweaks that are kind of unique to his own area. And one of the things he's waiting for is kind of that direction in budget-wise. Is like, what's the dollar that he has to work with, you know? And are we thinking about, you know, that 4.6 increase or something far less? And so, as he's contemplating that, but I've been giving him salary tables from other counties, because other counties do the same. They have a separate table for their law enforcement, especially the rank employees, and those tables look very different than the tables for all the other employees. So he's looking at different models right now, he's hoping to get something together to present.
I talked to him yesterday myself, and they actually, I told him we was meeting today, and I'm talking about what direction we kind of want to go on the budget. We could put out and give them guys information so that they are on the same playing field that we're on.
Okay. So that's really updates since I think last I've talked to you all about this. And so, yeah, seeking direction, or if there's anything else you want me to do or advise on this.
We'll get that extra information we asked for.
Okay.
Look, that's where I'm at. We went through and looked at the different counties and stuff, and I think we need to look at Madison and Bonneville, or Madison and Bingham, instead of looking at Kootenai. And I mean, they're double our employees and everything else. So
Yeah, I agree with Commissioner Moser completely. We can't just be looking at counties that have many more employees than us. Obviously, ideally, we would have them about the same, but that's, you know, there aren't that many counties to choose from. So we should be looking for some with less employees as well, so we get a balance, and it's not just, we're only comparing ourselves with counties with double.
Okay. Yep, well, that's a good point. So, I can, like I said, I've already got data from Bingham, so theirs would be not too challenging. And maybe if I may, focus on those benchmark positions rather than all 400.
I'd agree with that. I mean,
Okay.
but then the other part is, when we're looking at these, it comes back to what Christie said. What's their job titles?
Yeah.
I mean, just because you have the title doesn't mean this is what your job is. And
Right.
So I don't mind doing a benchmark on different ones, but
Sure.
when we look at it and evaluate it, we're going to be saying, okay, are they not exactly the same? And at least it puts us in the ballpark. I mean, we're kind of looking at kind of the assessor over there. Are you within 10% each side of the people? Then we're in the ballpark, in my opinion.
And what I could do is, on that external analysis, like this, like I have an example here, like the administrative manager family. And what I've done, I've got some of the benchmark positions. I've sent this to you in Excel, but it's a lot of data, right? So that's why I didn't put it into this. But it does kind of have the groupings of similar positions together from the different counties, and it paints somewhat of a picture as you look at it. So I could give you this data too. It's a bit, it kind of becomes a bit much, but I could give it to you.
But you can send it electronically, and
Okay.
when we can look at it. It doesn't have to be in our packet.
Okay. So, anyway.
Okay. Any questions?
We're clawing our way closer and closer.
Clawing is the right term.
Yeah, and I do want to, before this is over, I do want to acknowledge that last year, you know, that we had a great COLA, right? And we look a lot better this year than we did last year because of that. I do want to acknowledge that. But other counties also did big pay increases too last year.
Well, it took a lot of work to get to that COLA.
Yeah. Yeah.
All I
And
can say.
I'm sure that's very appreciated.
All right, thank you. So the next part of our agenda was to talk about what we are looking for and advice to give in budget to departments. Like I said, I talked to Tony, talked with Jason a little bit. Do we want to, well, let's just, thoughts?
Start with John.
Well, let's start with the experience.
You've got the more
guys.
concrete path that you're looking for. I'm still sitting on the fence with a few things.
All right,
so.
fine, I'll go ahead. So we talked a little bit about inflation, and my number one concern is with our employers, which is our residents, our taxpayers in Bannock County. And these guys have been dealing with, and we've seen this now for a number of years, these discussions going on about rising property taxes, and now we also are they're also dealing with inflation. So the people who elect us are dealing with some significant issues with respect to their budgets. And so my highest priority with respect to looking at the budget for the county is how can we ensure that we're not adding to the burden of our constituents. And so my thinking on the budget as we go this year is I don't want to increase spending in the county at all. Yeah, because that's the component that as a county we can control. We can't control the rising cost of residential homes as people move into the area. That's something that has to be dealt with by the legislature if they want to give exemptions and tax breaks for property tax and so on. So that's a component the legislature has to deal with. We can't really deal with that. I do think there is some ability here for us as we move forward to look at some tax incentives that we might be able to provide to commercial properties, industrial properties, which could take care of, for example, if we have properties that are underutilized, and we have many in the county that are underutilized, commercial properties, industrial properties, that it's possible perhaps if we had some kind of tax incentives available that these properties could be developed, which would then put them on the tax rolls, and maybe we see a shift away from the residential to some degree back to commercial properties. So that's something that would be a different discussion, but I think that's something we need to talk about at some point. And then we also deal with things like unfunded liabilities. Again, that's the legislature has to deal with that. I know the legislature this year has taken there's been a lot of discussion about property tax. We've had competing bills. Now there's kind of a summary bill that's coming through. That's the main property tax bill, and I believe there are even some other property tax bills besides that primary one. That seems to be a marrying of two different bills. We can't control that, but what we can control is the spending in the county. That is the taxpayers' portion of the spending. And so I've mentioned that I don't want to see an increase in spending, but I do also recognize that we're going to go, as we look through the different needs of the departments, we're going to find that there are additional needs that departments are going to have that are justifiable. And so what I would like to see to the maximum extent possible is utilizing grant monies, which would include ARPA money, to mitigate ongoing expenses, not only this year, but expenses going forward into the future that would normally fall on the taxpayers, to the taxpayers as a burden. And to me, that would, like take the maintenance, for example, which I've already talked about. If we start working on this $16 million in backlogged maintenance and repairs we have, then that is something that's going to come out of what we're going to have to, what we would normally spend this year. But it's also going to save us in years to come. Because we all know the longer you defer maintenance and put things off, the more expensive it gets, renovations and so on. So as we're talking to our departments, what I would tell people is, if you feel like you need to change and have an increase in spending in your department, find where the money's gonna come from. Do you have other things that you're doing in your department that perhaps this is not as important a need, that you can take money away from there to fund this thing that's now more of a priority? Are you able to find grants to cover some of these things? And so that anyway, that would be the direction that I would like to see everybody is hold the budget flat, but if you find you have additional things you need, find where the resources can come from without continuing to burden or extra burden to the taxpayer.
So just a question. You say hold your budget flat. Are you talking both A and B budget?
I'm talking both A and B budget.
Both A and B budget. So you're not looking at giving a raise this year?
What I'm saying is, I want the budget held flat. That doesn't necessarily mean you can't justify raises in some areas. I think if we're gonna look at raises, we really need to look at real needs. So, for example, that should be the priority. If we have a department where you cannot get a mechanic, or we're not able to get mechanics, I'm just throwing that out as an example. And the only way we're gonna be able to get mechanics that we need in the county is to increase the salary. Then we find where can we free up money to take care of that problem. So what I'm saying is, look for ways that we can shift money from something that's a lesser priority to a greater priority, or find grants, or adjust the fee structure in such a way that allows us to have some money that we can utilize if necessary in these cases. So I'm not saying that I'm opposed to raises, and I know it's a challenging task to not raise your spending, but also find money for some other areas. But I think it's doable if we put in the work and find out how we can get it done.
Jim?
I was thinking about this a lot in the last couple days, and I met with Ryan last week and talked about the pay and stuff, and I'm on board with John trying to hold the budget as low as we can, because there is a pinch coming, and I think, I don't know if we're out of the recession water yet. In fact, I'm afraid that recession wave is coming. So I can't argue with what John says about trying to hold the budget as flat as possible, but I do like the idea of being able to look, if you want to justify a raise, then what are you willing to give up? And that's one of the thoughts I was having this morning. I appreciated Jason's comments during the benefits section, because our benefits are fairly rich. And so I'm thinking, is there some places that we can give and take to maybe fund more salaries, change some things, the benefit side, I don't know, but that's kind of where I'm at, is I want to take care of some of the salary issues that we have. And I like John's approach of how do we prioritize it and what are you willing to give up? If you want more salaries, what efficiencies can you find? Those type of things. So that's kind of where I'm at, is just, let's see what we can do to fix our salary issues and then go from there.
So, Jason?
Well, I agree that I've been thinking recession recently. We don't know what's coming, but it will be very difficult if we do dip further into a recession, and if housing values do continue to drop as they have the last few months of this year, of last year and currently, then what are we going to do with our budget? We can't continue to go up at all. If that dip in property values is coming, our levy would skyrocket. So that's what I've been thinking about, similar to Jeff. And I think we've done a pretty good job. The last couple of years, there have been different times over the last 4 years where we've come to our budget meetings with departments and said, where are you going to save if you want any sort of a increase in pay? And our departments have done a good job at doing just that when we've asked them to do it, so I don't see any difference this year forthcoming. I agree with John in there are probably going to be some maintenance issues that come before us during budget presentations that different departments have. I'm sure that Dan will have some high priorities that I think that we might be able to skim a little bit of ARPA money away to do that, to defer future tax-based needs.
Part of the issue I have with some of the ongoing maintenance, what John brings up a very good point, but how much more money do we sink into, across the street is a great example, how much more money do we sink into that as opposed to looking at something else and moving forward? So that's the debate that I'm weighing right now is.
When you say across the street, you mean?
The assessor's
annex.
building.
The annex.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, the annex, you know, that building probably needs to go away, but we really can't right now, but.
See, and I disagree with that. I've been through that building and I know it has its issues and it's got an expensive HVAC fix that needs to happen. Let's do it. Let's use ARPA money and put $200,000 into a whole new system there, because it's not crumbling to the ground. It's just an old building, but really it's fine. It's got good bones still.
And those are the things I want to
Yeah,
look
yeah,
at.
we can chat about it. 100%,
This
yeah.
one across the street is one that bothers me the most. I mean, the whole top floor is, they can, but they can't utilize it effectively.
Right.
I mean, anyway, we need to have that discussion about what we're gonna do with them funds. I mean, like I said, I wanna extend, every time I come down here and we got water coming in the front door down here, we need to
Right.
fix that.
Yeah, I agree.
What are we gonna do with this street out here? And so all those things gotta be part of it. But going back to the budget, I would look at doing a step and a COLA to equal like 4%. But the departments have gotta, I mean, it doesn't do any good to give 7% last year and come up to, and everybody's got them to pay property taxes. Our employees have to pay them. And so we have, in my opinion, we have to look at them too. And if we tell each department, okay, we're looking at a 4% increase total on salaries, how are you gonna adjust that in your budget, B budget, or where do we need to look? But I still think that all employees need a raise.
If we go that route, just talking down that rabbit hole, one of the things I would like to do is have both Christie's office and HR look at the ones that have the most compression, and this is going to be a lot of work. I know, Christie's, plug your ears real quick. I would rather give, if we do go down that route and we can fund it per department, giving more steps than COLA. Even a couple of steps rather than COLA to eliminate some of the compression.
And I'm just saying
Right.
that's my range right in there is like a 4% or something. Because like I said, before, and this was before my time, I heard people say, well, we never get COLAs, we get steps. And maybe, because they was complaining that they didn't, the steps don't go on their retirement the way the COLA does and stuff. So that's why I'm saying, I don't know what the answer is, the right answer, but I still believe that we need to give our employees about a 4% increase.
And I would disagree if your thought here is everybody gets the same raise. Like, I think that was pretty much the way it went last year. I would disagree with that. I think we really need to. You're going to have some positions that are significantly underpaid, which is going to lead to these issues of not being able to staff them. And so, in my mind, I would prefer to see targeted spending rather than just.
And I have no problem with that, because we're supposed to be doing evaluations this year, and it's supposed, and if a department looks inside their own department and says, okay, this individual is doing this and deserves more, but there's a 4% in their cap area, that's what we did over here with the prosecutors. We says, here's the amount of money you got, you guys decide who gets the money. And Steve went through with his people and looked it over and come back and says, okay, I want to give this person this, this, and this. And that's why we do evaluations, in my opinion.
Well, why we will do them, I guess. So,
Well, they're supposed to be done this year.
right.
And then the other part of it is, I would like to have their list, each department, of anybody that they want to have an increase in personnel. Last year, or this past year, seemed like it was a week after we got through with budget that people are coming in here and saying, well, I want to add this position, I want to add this position. No, right now is when you're thinking about those things.
Yeah, that was frustrating.
And I just want to reiterate again the idea of, we talk about finding the money within what you have currently and transferring funds, but I really want to emphasize looking at these grant opportunities, which includes the ARPA. The ARPA is a grant, including that to take care of some of these issues. I just want to make sure, as much as possible, we find the money without going to the taxpayer to get it, and the money's there in a lot of cases. We just have to go get it.
I'm willing to inform people to look for it, but like Jason says, in the past few years, we've been pretty tight on what we've expected out of people and stuff. So I'm not saying that we won't take part of our 3% or in my opinion, they got to present them budgets to us because we still have to operate the county.
So what about new positions? What's going to be your direction for that?
I think that it's just like last year, they present to us with justification, and then we evaluate them just like we did. And what we had, 32 last year, and we give 2 or 1 and 2, something like that. And then the week after, we started giving more. And that's
Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't do very many. I just thought with the basic concept of trying to hold the line and focusing on salaries, maybe say if you need a new employee, but it better be a vast need, not.
the justification has to be there.
My
I'm a little
opinion is going to
overwhelmed.
be the same as it was last year, and that is, as we move forward in the future, always, technology is improving and it's supposed to be making us more efficient. And so, like for example, in the last year, I've not gotten rid of, but
Attrition.
yeah, there are 3 positions that aren't there. And I found that really, yeah, I do need one of those back, but it's going to take multiple duties. And so it's already in a line item to position, but
Well, that's one
I
thing I
think
want to
that-
pay attention to this year is the attrition. Are we having retirements that we don't need to refill? because of-
exactly. And I'm not talking about getting rid of anyone, but as we go to rehire, I want everyone to do what I've tried to do, and that is, do we need to rehire this position? And maybe you try it for a while without. For example, Tori's position, we tried it as she was made the jury commissioner. We tried it without her it's been 6 months.
Yeah.
I mean, we've given it a go, and those girls are burning at both ends, and we really need somebody there. But that person can fill in multiple departments and be a backup for multiple places. We're also looking at the same type of questioning of how we staff the elections office, depending on how things look in the legislature this year. So that's going to be, when people present to me and they're talking about hiring positions, I'm going to tell them, is there technology that you have implemented in the last couple of years that's supposed to be making you more efficient? And then you're just rehiring this position because it's been there for 20 years. So that's what I told them last year. That's what I'll tell them this year. I'm going to be hard pressed to hire any new positions. I just don't think we need to, just because they've been there. I would rather pay a position more and have fewer people. Pay better and have fewer people. And the last thing then is, oh, and I lost my train of thought there.
Well, I'll just comment on what you said. I couldn't agree more with what Jason is saying. I think this is exactly the way we ought to do things. And the clerk's department, as I've kind of looked at the county budget and so on, I think has done an excellent job in finding where there's somebody retires or leaves for whatever reason, and really taking a look at their processes and seeing, is there some way we can improve our processes, that we can utilize technology? And I am fine if we're adding additional workload to existing employees to give them some extra money as an incentive to take on these extra duties if it's saving an entire position. So I really think they've done a great job in this, and I think we need to see more of this throughout the county.
The other thing I was going to say is, in the past, years ago, and we haven't done this in a while, but I don't want to fall back into people asking for more positions when they have empty positions, right? So that's not going to, I would never recommend that moving forward. And we haven't done that since, but I just want to reiterate it since I've been here.
Ryan, you had a comment?
Yeah. So as I've been preparing my report, I've talked to every elected official and most department heads, and I think what you're talking about, I don't see any of them having much pushback on that, and I'm not seeing I'm seeing very few talking about adding positions. So I don't think you're going to see a whole lot of requests in that area. And what I think I put in my report, I think there's a need to do, and I wouldn't expect much beyond that.
Christie, questions as you sent out the letter? Do you have questions, comments?
You know what, I'll work with Jason on what we're gonna send on the letter, and then if there's questions, we'll probably bring a draft forward, like we've traditionally done.
Mm-hmm.
I made some notes, basically what we've always done. Hold your budgets flat, no new positions, or they better be justified and mandated, not just a non-mandate function, probably.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna try and do a step and a COLA. Gotta see what we can afford. I mean, we don't even have values yet. We still don't know what the public defense is gonna do. That still makes me wanna throw up, not knowing how we're gonna deal with that. So I've just kind of made notes, and then I'll say also, if you've got projects, let us know urgency, prioritize them. And we can add in there, do you expect any efficiencies to be created from those projects that might help what Commissioner Crowder's wanting? I think, did that catch everything that everybody said? I mean, you all kind of said the same thing.
And I would add a couple more things here which are related to this, but I think are separate discussions. And one is process management. I would really like to go out and do a process review throughout the county of what is the work being done, what is the workflow, and so on. And we did this extensively when I was working for American President Lines years ago, and that you can potentially identify a lot of savings by looking at your processes and finding out how to make them more efficient. So I want to do that with the county, and I think we need to have that discussion.
Yeah.
And then the second thing is looking at all these properties. So we got Dan Kendall's list of, and I keep mentioning this 16 million in maintenance, deferred maintenance, and renovations. It includes renovations. And some of these properties, I think we don't need them, or we can find a way to get rid of, they're more cost than they're worth. And we need to probably get rid of some of these properties, sell some of them, and that's also going to bring in now some additional revenue that could be utilized better in some other way. And so I'd like to do a review of all the properties that the county has and really come to a determination. What are we going to keep? What are we going to fix? What are we going to get rid of? And so on, before we start adding additional properties.
Okay. Anything else?
Ready to break?
Last item, sandbags. So we got an email from Wes yesterday. We've gone through 2,000 or 20,000 sandbags.
Really?
In this week. What do we need to do? Do we order more? Do we put people on notice
I
that they're
have an
responsible for?
I have an update on that.
Oh, okay.
They do have a few more bags coming in. We have 12,000 on hand now. I think there's another 12 that are on their way, so we'll have about 20,000. Wes sent me the link to where he got the sandbags that we have, and he doesn't have any pull. We're just another vendor, so I sent him a request for a price quote for another 20,000 bags this morning, and I haven't heard back from the company yet. But the website that Wes sent me doesn't have a lot of information on how fast they can deliver or whatever, but we do have right now access to about another 20,000 bags. So 12 on hand, another 12 coming.
So I'm not as nervous as I was yesterday when I was just informed that we'd gone through 20,000 bags in 2 days. That made me real nervous yesterday.
Well, I'm sure the cost of the sandbags will greatly outweigh the cost of the damages.
Yeah.
If we help people, they can guide their own water. So how much did 20,000 sandbags cost?
You know, I didn't get that number from them. And what,
Is he using grant money? to buy
no,
them?
No.
because you can't use the grant unless there's an emergency. So he checked on that, and the government said, not unless there's emergency.
You gotta have the disaster first.
Yep.
Can we have him still pay for them out of his emergency management budget? Because at least half of that gets reimbursed through
That's
the state.
a question to
In that
ask.
email yesterday, he said something about doing that too.
Yeah. If he uses his normal county operations budget, then we would at least only have to. We'd be reimbursed half
Yeah.
once reimbursements happen and all that. Just a thought.
Yeah, so we ought to make sure that he
Yeah.
codes it that way.
But I feel a lot better. I mean, if we got 20,000 bags coming, or on half that coming and half of it on hand. And then I talked to the mayor in Ingham yesterday afternoon, and we've gone through 3 piles of sand out there on a pallet of bags. So they actually had 1 pallet of bags left. And so I don't think we've actually distributed as many bags as they've placed out to be distributed to. And so, but I think that's something that we need to keep on top of. And honestly, if it comes down to it, and we need to tell them just to order and get them here. Is everybody in agreement with that?
I am.
I mean,
I think so.
well, I'm just saying that if we run out of the 20,000 that we have now, and the rivers, I mean, right now, Portneuf and Rapid Creek are not running high. But if we have days in 2 weeks that are 60 degrees during the day and 40 degrees at night, and it looks like we're gonna have flooding, I'd rather anticipate and have them on hand rather than, well, we got them ordered and they'll be in here in
No,
a
I
month.
agree with you. Let's be proactive and let's make sure we're not.
The weather
setting
for the
ourselves up
week
disaster.
appears to be getting up into the high 40s, lows getting back down into the 20s next week. Another cold week, so I think we're gonna be okay for a couple weeks with the ground not thawing.
No, I agree
Or
with you.
that'll be an issue. the
But
ground
if
not-
one of us get a call and say, we're out, I think that
No, we need to be prepared.
the ability
So
to
that's
go
gonna
ahead and
save-
order.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's gonna cost us far more and our residents far more if we're not prepared, so.
Okay, it's just so we're all on the same page there. Now, with that being said,